You're listening to episode 2 of the Products Boss podcast. In this episode, Jacqueline interviews me, Minna, on my entrepreneur journey and how I came to own my product-based business, Lil Labels. Welcome to the Product Boss podcast, where we help product-based businesses grow their sales and improve their strategies.
Hey everyone, I want to introduce you to my co-host and biz bestie, Minna Khounlo-Sithep, an Amazon guru that has built a multi-six-figure product-based business.
And introducing the other half of the Product Boss, Jacqueline Snyder. She has helped launch and grow over 500 fashion apparel and accessory brands, even one of her own.
And together, we share our inventory of secret weapons that will help you dig deep and do the work it takes.
Are you ready? Let's build together.
Hey everyone, Jacqueline here, and I want to introduce you to my biz bestie and your host of the Product Boss, Minna Khounlo-Sithep. Hey Minna.
Hey there, everyone.
So as the other half of the Product Boss's dynamic duo, Minna is an Amazon expert and a huge business nerd, and Minna's dubbed herself as a business nerd. It's not me. and it's because she has told me that if she's going to do something, she's going to know everything there is to know about it, which is why she's been so successful on Amazon. I mean it. This is actually how I found Minna, because I was told that she's an Amazon expert. This woman decided to research and study how she could grow her business through the Amazon site, and she did. And just to brag for a minute, her company is a multi-six-figure business, a product-based business. And speaking of her business, she is a creator and owner of Lil Labels. Lil Labels are writable waterproof labels that you use on baby bottles, water bottles, lunch boxes, and pretty much anything that needs to go through a dishwasher that needs to have your kid's name on it. And she didn't stop there. She also created Lil Labels for clothes, washable, no iron labels that you can write your kids or your husband's name on so they don't get lost at school. Oh, Minna, you would be so embarrassed, or I'm embarrassed. The Sharpie I have used to label my kids' clothes before finding your product is a little bit embarrassing, especially since I'm a fashion designer. So when I met Minna, I don't know if I've told you this. I actually knew her product way before I knew her. I owned Lil Labels for a couple of years. And so when I met her, it was sort of like meeting the artist of a painting you've owned and looked at for years. I totally geeked out. Did you know that?
No, I did not.
It's kind of like meeting Angelina Jolie, I think, a little bit.
Yes. People mistake me for her all the time.
And you were mentioned on podcasts that I listened to. And so I felt like I was meeting a celebrity. Anyways, Minna's like, oh, Jacqueline. Minna's a self-dubbed homebody. And that is probably why she's my business bestie, because honestly, I think we get a little too excited about our businesses and ideas. Some people like to travel to wine country to taste wines. Some people go to Disneyland. Minna and I literally talk multiple times a day and have flown to meet each other to work on our businesses. And we get so psyched and pumped when we create together. She's also a super inspirational mama to her little girls, Suri and Layla. She's raising each one of those to be a boss in her own way. Okay, friend, are you ready to do this?
Yes, I am ready.
Awesome. Okay, so Minna, where did your creative journey begin?
Well, I never expected to be on a creative journey. When I was growing up, I really was, pushed into books, and I loved books. Like, I took comfort in being able to learn about books. My parents and my grandparents, my grandparents were very involved in our lives. And my grandma actually lived with us, and we were taught not to use our imagination. Quite honestly, we didn't do pretend play. We didn't even play outside really like most normal kids. We just, we watched a lot of TV and we read a lot of books. And so all of it was, a traditional Asian household where they really want you to be invested in school. And that was really what I did. I grew up on books. And then when I went to college, I went to school for advertising, and I really, do you remember the movie Boomerang? that was like the ad agency and everything. So I thought I was going to end up in an ad agency like Boomerang. It was so glamorous. And I was going to be behind the scenes coming up with ideas. And I ended up at like a mom and pop shop wedding place that they did wedding brochures. And I started doing graphic design. So I self-taught myself graphic design. And back then it was Quark Express. And right now it's InDesign. So they basically, Adobe rebranded it since then. And so I started doing that for the mom and pop shop. And then that's where I started doing graphic design, which I didn't ever intend to be a graphic designer. And then it just kind of became part of my journey, and it's ended up being like one of the biggest strengths that I have for being an entrepreneur. And so that really was where I got all my creativity, was as an adult, and then also internally as a kid.
That's amazing. So you built or what did you do? Graphics? What was sort of your main
print material? So anything. So it was wedding brochures. And then I was going to school, or during that time, I was there for 4 years. I went to get my MBA at night. So I was getting my MBA at night, and I graduated after a few years. And I thought, what am I going to do with myself? Like, I thought I was going to end up in an ad agency. At that time, I didn't know what I wanted to do, even though I had my MBA. And so then I thought, you know what, I'm just going to start my own business, because that husband and wife that I was working for, it was just, I was their only employee. So they would literally leave sometimes for 3 weeks on vacation, and I would completely run the business for them. So I would be running the entire business, doing all the graphic design, handling all the clients. And they had originally hired me to be a project manager, but I ended up doing all the things. And so they would leave, and then I thought, oh, well, I can really do this myself. So back in the day, that was when direct mail was really popular, when, it actually was really effective. So I sent out this mailing. I made brochures for myself, and my branding back then was butterflies, believe it or not, really colorful butterflies. And I sent them out, and I got my first client, which was a commercial real estate management company out in Boston. They had never met me. They got my brochure in the mail, and they called me up, and they hired me to do all the like business cards and everything for their properties. And they had hundreds of employees in their properties. So it was like the bellman and the fixer guy or the repairman or whatever. And so I started doing theirs, and that was my first client. And I've since then never met them. And so they restructured and everything. So obviously I'm not working for them anymore, but I worked for them for like 8 years, and we had never met each other. And it was my first client. So I had a really big corporate client from the get-go, from direct mail. And so, yeah, times are different back then. And then my sister started temping at a bank, and she said, hey, they have a new creative director there. He's looking for people to do overflow work for graphic design from their marketing company, or for their marketing department. So he's interviewing people. So I actually interviewed with him, and I landed my second client, which was a bank. And that was because I had that first client from the direct mail, and he was like, oh, well, she has this big client, she must know what she's doing. So then I had those 2 clients, basically with no experience.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it was a lot. So then it was how I started off. And then I just kept doing graphic design for 6 or 7 years. I knew it was a big deal that I had these big clients. So I would approach agencies and ask them to do work so they would hire me. And so I worked for 2 different agencies, and I worked on brands like Electrolux, Michelin, everything. And I just would come in. They actually required me to be there. So then I would go into the agency, do the work, and then I would leave. And I made a really good living from it, where even back then, when I was only thinking of myself as a freelancer, I always had goals for myself. So my goal, since I was starting to have kids and everything, was to make $60,000 a year, but work less than 30 hours a week. And so I would hit that, and then I would just be like, go on about my day. And so then I just started building it. I really didn't really think of it as a business or anything. And then when I was going to have my second daughter, so now we're all the way up into 2015. So I had my first daughter in 2010, and I was working at agencies, had, big corporate clients. I was working their annual reports, newsletters, everything. And so it was a lot of creative work. And then when I was going to have my second daughter, I basically had reached my burnout point by that point. So this was 5 years later. My kids are 5 years apart, and reached my burnout point. And I said to my husband, I cannot do any more creative work. And there was some transitioning in those agencies too. They were going to get rid of their freelancers. They had 5 freelancers. I was one of them. So I knew I had to make some sort of shift in my business. And the agency work was actually the easiest. So I knew I either had to pick up another big client or start working more hours creatively. And I did not want to do that. So when I said that to my husband, he said, hey, I'm listening to Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. He's the author. He's like, he's talking about Amazon and how it's going to change the world and blah, blah, blah. And so then he saw this program that teaches you, or this course that teaches you about Amazon. And he's like, you could do this actually, because you have all the graphic design background. So it was basically taking products from China, rebranding them. So it's called private labeling, and then selling them on Amazon. So I started doing that because I knew that I had a timeline. I was going to have a baby in 9 months, and if you've ever met pregnant Minna, she is not pleasant to be around. Like, she's pretty bossy and totally, like, I'm tenacious when I am pregnant. I'm easygoing when I'm not pregnant, but when I'm pregnant, like, I'm a different person. I can't even handle myself, and so I basically started doing the private labeling, but I didn't like how risky it was, because I would have to wire the factories in China money from my bank. And we're talking, thousands of dollars here. And I said to my husband that I wanted to come up with my own product. And so the products that I came up with was waterproof labels. And that's because when we had our first daughter, Suri, 5 years before, we were using masking tape and to label the bottles, because for every day for daycare, you have to label the bottles with your child's name. And so then I said, hey, I want to make my own product. And then I was just kind of keeping my eye out for things I would want to create. And so then I started getting ready for Layla to go to daycare. And I thought, what the heck? Nobody has fixed this problem yet. And that was seriously my light bulb moment. And then I said it probably more mean than that, because I was pregnant and very hormonal. And like I said, pregnant Minna is not pleasant. And so I set off, super pregnant by that time, to figure it out. And I went through, I was on my 12th manufacturer trying to figure it out. But I had commercial printing background because of the annual reports and things that I had done. So we did really fancy things like magnetic closures, twine in between them, things like that really, I knew how a commercial printer works. So I knew there's specific adhesives. I knew there's specific label materials. So I knew going in kind of where I wanted to end up. And it took me even to my 12th manufacturer to get them to see what I was trying to do. And so that's really where Lil Labels was born. And it went super, super fast. And then when I put my product on Amazon was when my daughter was 3 months.
So that took you about 1 year from concept through getting it on Amazon and selling.
It did. And during that time, I was doing that private labeling stuff. So I was learning everything I could about Amazon by using that private labeling strategy, and then figuring out what works for ads, what works for listings, things like that. So then when I got my product up and running, the labels, I literally blew it out of the water, because I already knew what I was doing from testing it out. And so that's what I did for the whole entire year. And then after that, so that was in July. And then at the end of that year, I quit doing private labeling altogether, because I just didn't feel comfortable with the risk that brought.
Right. But you learned through that as well, which is amazing. So,
Right.
Minna, how old were you when you decided to sort of, start your graphic business, and then when you decided to launch Lil Labels?
I was 23 when I decided to launch my graphic design business. And I wouldn't even say it was launching. It's funny back then, I was literally just what jobs can I get? And I wasn't even seeing it as a side hustle, really. It was just literally, picking up jobs here and there and making income, and it's not like now where there's actual launching of a business,
Right.
And then when I launched Lil Labels, It was in 2015. So I was, how old am I? I got to do the math really quick. I was 35. So that was 12 years apart.
Right. But you were an entrepreneur and just figuring things out as you went from 23.
I was. It was, it fit my personality because I loved being at home. I loved working at home, being creative, and then working with clients, but I didn't like being in that corporate setting. And so it kind of chose me, honestly. And then I just happened, you know how timing is everything. Like print media was really big, direct mail was really big. The economy started doing really badly in 2008. So a lot of people were let go. And by that time, I had clients. So then the idea of hiring a freelancer was like no big deal at that point. So then I would pick up clients. I had a casino and I had a big car dealership as my clients for a point. So I really was, once I got that one big client, they were like, hey, let's hire this girl. And I was just like a one person in my bedroom, with my dog.
I mean, it takes a lot of courage to not go the traditional route and to sort of just put it out there. And I think that's probably why you've been so successful. But what you were saying earlier was you were brought up to basically study, read books. I mean, you got your MBA. So what did your parents think about you starting your own business or businesses?
They didn't think anything because they did not know. I kept it a secret and it just happened. I did not tell them any of it. They knew they probably thought I was working somewhere for the entire time. And then when I said I was working at home, I think they thought that I was working at home for a company. They didn't realize that that company was my own company. So for the longest time until I was making income from it, they just thought, oh, she's just, that's her work. And for the longest time when people would ask what I did, my mom would say I worked on computers, so really it was, I didn't really outright tell them. It was one of those things where, and then, entrepreneurialism in Asian people is I think it's almost in our blood a little bit because of the hustle is built in, coming to America, the American dream, having this struggle, trying to prove your name and everything like that. So I think that once I didn't go the route of being a doctor or a lawyer or being in a corporation, they were like, oh, hopefully she marries one. And I did. So.
That's so funny. Yeah, we were talking about this yesterday, but we're actually both first generation Americans.
Yeah.
And I mean, we know a ton of Americans, like long-term Americans that are entrepreneurs as well. But I think there is something about being able to reinvent yourself and make yourself in a new place, a new country, basically being able to start again. And maybe there's less fear there based on the way we were raised.
Yeah, I think so. Parents really put the pressure on you when you're first generation because you're really building what's to come for the next generations, I feel like.
I don't know that that's all parents, and we'll talk about me in another episode, but I think you were saying maybe your Asian background where
Yes.
for the next generation, because honestly, my parents were both very different culturally, but it was really my own internal drive. And I think a lot of times entrepreneurs you have to have that internal drive because you have to stay up till 3 a.m. and you have to get up at 6 a.m. and you need to just get things done and you want to because it sort of sets you on fire.
Yeah, and you have to be okay with failure. I think that's built into immigrants too, is that they're okay with failing because they've been in the worst of situations
Mm-hmm.
and they've had to adjust. My parents came over and they didn't even speak any English. And same with my grandpa. The reason why we were brought over was because my grandpa spoke French. He fought for the French and then he spoke French and the lady at the church spoke French too. So that's how they communicated was, through French. And it's just incredible where you end up, right? So.
Amazing. Okay, so here's a fun question. I was thinking about this yesterday. But where and when do you come up with some of your best ideas? Like, is it in the shower while singing in the morning?
No, I hate singing in the shower, which is so funny because I'm not a morning person at all. My husband is, and he's a singer. And I remember like the times being pregnant, and I'd be like, I told you, no singing in the morning.
There's nothing like a pregnant woman. And then I'm thinking a pregnant entrepreneurial woman who's like got a time limit. You're like, I'm going to get this done before this baby comes and gets in the way of the business that I want to run.
Yeah. And this is a big tip too for when you want to come up with ideas. I read this one article and it was so helpful about when you want to get your best ideas. And physiologically, our bodies rest and think better when we're laying down. And that's creatively, or they even tested people that were doing like math problems. And so complex math problems, they were able to get them quicker when they were actually laying down. There's something physiologically about it where your mind is at rest, your body is at rest, and you can just build the ideas better.
That's
so literally I will lay down.
You will? So you'll just kind of get into bed, or what will you do? You'll just lay down to think?
I lay down and think, and I just let my mind just roll over the ideas. So I take it to, like, a lot of times it's, if I'm going over ROI. So I come up with an idea and I think, what type of money do I have to put into it? How much effort, how much time? Then where will it end up? And then I work backwards, and then I come up with ideas and I break them down. And then I put them into, I used to put them into a notebook until my daughters were obsessed with notebooks and would not let me even hold a pen or notebook around them because they would want to do it. So now I use this one app called Paperless Light on my iPhone, and it's just a checklist app. But you can toggle the things back and forth. So like I would build out, modules, if you will, like basically this steps, and then I would break them down, and then I would be able to move them in category or move them in sequences to make it how I wanted it. So then, like, let's say I came up with a Instagram strategy, then I would actually be able to do it by time frame because I can move everything around according to that app. So in a row, how I wanted it to be. So I discovered the app. It's super simple. It's free. And so that's how I do it. I literally break down my ideas into my iPhone, and it's not as effective as brainstorming on paper, but you just have to make it work when you have kids
that take over.
Yes. Yeah.
I decided my daughter's like a cat. When cats want to just stand on the papers that you're working on.
Yes. Yes. So, like, for instance, I bought myself a giant calendar, and I had to buy one for my daughters too. So basically buy duplicates of everything that I have so they can have a version for themselves. So if I'm putting a big calendar on the wall, they have to have their own section. Otherwise, they will just want to be on mine.
Okay. So let's back up for a minute. I don't know that we've told people, but your husband is your partner in Lil Labels. So tell us about working with your husband as your partner, and if you've ever worked with any other family members.
Yeah, he is. He is the inventory person. He does all the back end stuff, actually. So he started working part-time for me, and now he's going to be going full-time. And so he does all the back end stuff, like the accounting, the inventory. And then I do all the front end stuff, which is the marketing, the strategy. And we have very separate roles. He does a lot of packing and sending to Amazon. And then we just, and then he also looks at the reports on Amazon and then kind of talks to me about them. Basically, a lot of data stuff that I don't care or want to know about, besides when he interprets it for me. And then I can say, hey, this is what we should do. I do work with other family members. And honestly, if I could, I would hire every single family member that I have. Like, I know people tell you not to do it, but I love it. Like, I'm really close with my sisters. And if I could, I would build entire business that employed all my sisters, and then my brother-in-law and my sister-in-law too. So my sister, her husband helps me pack. He's a packer. And so he does fulfillment stuff where he puts the labels in the package. And then there's, she's kind of the quality control person. My sister is. She's an accountant in real life, and he's a stay-at-home dad. So helps them with extra money. He's like my W-9 miscellaneous employee. And then my other sister, she was doing that in her free time too, but she has since not, she's getting into real estate. So she's not doing it for me anymore. But like I said, I would just like, all of them to work for me some way if I could. I love it, actually.
That is so sweet. I mean, there's a lot of people out there thinking like, oh no, I could never. Um, the dynamic you have with your own family and whether it's the right move for you or not.
My parents always say that they're going to retire and move to where I live. And so I've even built into my future plan how they could work for me, but not really work for me because I could not have my mom working for me. Honestly, she would drive me crazy. But I think that the way that I'm going to fold her into the business is that she would be the cook. So while my sisters and I work, and my husband and, whoever else, their husbands, she would cook us breakfast and lunch, and then, and then dinner for the kids, because like I love the food that my mom makes. And then also I hate making the decisions for dinner time. Like every single day I'm like, oh my gosh, I wish somebody could just take care of dinner for me, for my kids. Not because I don't love to cook, but I'm like, my brain is spent by the end of the day. And so it's something that she loves to do and something that I love her to do and something I can like outsource. So I would just pay her to do that. So I've come up with everything, quite honestly.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that you and I, through some of the entrepreneurial female women groups that we've been a part of, it's been how to get that home help, like how to balance work life, being an entrepreneur, the hours that takes, and also being a mom and sort of, doing the, I guess you could say traditional roles of being there for your family, like having dinner ready. So that would be excellent because your mom, I'm sure, loves to be with your family and, that little bit of extra help, and it keeps everyone together.
Yeah, for sure. And on top of it, she isn't, in my business, but at the same time, she's definitely helping to support it, so it just gives her some purpose too. And then she's an amazing cook. So it all works out. So I haven't told her this plan. Obviously I plan for everybody without consulting them.
Then she will actually know what kind of business you do. And she's like, why are there millions and millions of labels everywhere?
I know. And she kind of understands it now because she's seen the labels, but she probably would try to organize them her own way if she really was like in the business. She just only sees them when they come to visit, so it's not like she's going to turn the business upside down. But yeah, if she was actually living where I live, I don't even know. Like the woman, she would, take it upon herself to, I'm sure, improve my business.
You would be like one of those corporate companies where they have those amazing cafeterias with, latte machines and beers on tap and
yes, I definitely
workout classes. But it's all for your mama.
Yep, and daycare. And my dad's going to be a chauffeur for our kids because by that time they'll be a little bit older and they'll be in activities.
So when you're first starting out, designing, manufacturing and selling your products can feel completely overwhelming. So, and we've talked about this, but oftentimes we feel like solopreneurs versus entrepreneurs, especially in the product realm, because there are so many people out there doing digital products, but very few of them are actually dealing with contractors and manufacturing and product development. So we don't really have that community to support us to bounce ideas off of. And that's really the way that you and I found each other, through these groups that we've been with. So what would be one of your best actionable tips for a new product entrepreneur?
I think it would be definitely to find other product entrepreneurs. When I was first starting, it was just a different set of struggles. I was overwhelmed when I first started. Like I said, it was in private labeling. So it was a physical product that I was getting from China. I was overwhelmed by the amount of money that was and the risk it was on my family. And when you're service-based, I don't think you fully get like the amount of money that gets invested and then the risk that is. So I would say, surround yourself with the same like-minded people, with entrepreneurs, but also try to surround yourself with product-based people too, because it makes such a difference. When I found you, for instance, it just like alleviated a lot of struggles that I had because I knew that somebody else was totally getting it and they have been there and they, could just understand where it's coming from. So that's a really big tip.
Absolutely. That community. What was the one thing that you did that generated the greatest return on your investment?
When I first started, actually it was 2016, they would allow flash deals during Prime Day. And this is when Prime Day was just, now it's a big deal, but a few years ago, they were just they made that day up. They basically made their Christmas up, And so it actually since then has generated more sales than even the Christmas season for Amazon. And so they would let sellers do flash deals. And so I did a flash deal on my product, which was Animal Friends baby bottle labels. And I sold over 700 units that day within 4 hours. So they give you like a 4 hour time slot and you have to sell at like 20% less than you normally do. And so I didn't make a great deal of money. I mean, I did, but the momentum that that gave me on Amazon really, really propelled me into even the entire year. So that's in July. Prime Day is in always mid-July. And it just kept my sales going really, really well because it boosted my rankings till basically Christmas season. And it was awesome.
Yeah, getting that bump in the middle of the year is pretty incredible.
Yeah, it goes to show you the power of Amazon. And since then you have to be invited now to do those flash deals. And I haven't been able to do it. I must not have made enough money for them, during that time because they take 15%, right? And then you have to discount it too. And which my husband's always like, why do you want that deal so bad? I'm like, because it's the momentum. Like, it's not even really the amount of money. Even if we broke even, the momentum is just the ROI, and that is what I'm going for.
So Amazon, if you're listening, Lil Labels
Yes.
this July.
And I mean, I sold 700. Come on,
Yeah. And they're they're a small product and they're not a high price point. I think that's pretty awesome. Yeah. Maybe they're just trying to diversify what they offer every
And
Prime
I think
Day.
they probably want to sell, like have a heavier discount. So, like you said, mine is a smaller price product. They probably want something that's like $45, that sells for 20 that day or something.
Yeah. They'll make more money.
Yeah.
Okay. So moving on to that, I mean, you are my productivity guru. Really? I look to you whenever I'm trying to schedule out my life, my day. You've introduced me to so many different tools. So what would be your number one productivity tool or technique that you could share with our listeners?
My favorite tool ever is Loom, which is, we do this all the time back and forth with each other. But for anybody who doesn't know what it is, it's a video Chrome extension. So you basically take a video of your screen and you're able to give changes back or go over anything. And it's just a short video and it's super easy. And the reason why I like that is because with being a mom, you just don't have the time, honestly, to like type things out and write an email, and you just have to be really quick about it. And you're able just to make a quick video and say, here's where this is, here's where that is. I've even made videos for my husband to figure out how to do things on Amazon. So he knows where to look for things and he knows what I'm talking about. And I just shoot it into his email and it's a quick, like 1 minute email or 1 minute video. And that's probably my favorite. But my tip would be, use as many tools as you can. Like, I probably use 50 tools and they're all super simple and they all do kind of like one purpose things. I use things specifically for Instagram, things specifically for Pinterest, and then I hire experts when I need to. So, and then they use the tools. So it's just, I'm tool crazy. There's so many tools out there that were never there when I first started as an entrepreneur.
And I think the tools are fantastic because there's not a really large or like huge learning curve. So really they're almost like that plug and play idea where you put it on, you just know how to click and it will start doing what it needs to do, versus when you're training yourself in a new system to help your business, like a CRM system or an accounting system, and you really have to learn the ins and outs. So, okay, I want to get into some fun questions so we just get to know you. And it's kind of going to be a bunch of questions, rapid fire. So let's start. What is your coffee order?
Straight up black coffee. And it took me literally a year to get over sugar and cream. Like, I missed it so much. So
that's how I drink my coffee. Minna and I are the best of friends, but we are physically never together. So as we both have our coffee cups sipping, we both needed our coffee before this call or this podcast, but we don't know what's actually in our coffee cup. So we're both drinking the same. So cheers.
I know. So now when I bring you coffee, I know just black.
Yep, same. Okay, so what is the favorite thing on your desk right now?
My favorite thing is, let me see, I'm looking around at my desk. Oh, I have a little, so I'm Taidam, and I have this little peg doll that I got from Etsy that I did for, it was a fundraiser for refugees. And so I have a little tiny Taidam little person, and super cute. And that's my favorite thing.
So cute. Maybe you could post a picture on Facebook for
Yeah,
us to see
it's
it.
adorable. It's like a little tiny, peg doll with a little black bun and a traditional Chaidam garb.
Awesome. Okay, finish the sentence. When I pick up my phone, I
Go to Instagram.
ooh. Okay, and then you wish you knew how to.
I wish I knew how to whistle. I don't know how to whistle.
Nina, neither can I.
You can't? Oh my God.
We are a match made in heaven. I always thought it was because I wore braces for so long that my mouth never went into the right shape.
Funny. Oh my God.
It's better that we can't whistle, and I also can't wink. And so,
Oh, I can only wink my right eye. I can't wink my left eye.
so it's less wrinkles, is what my mother-in-law just told me, around our mouth and our eyes.
Oh my gosh. That's awesome. That makes me feel better.
Right? What was the last show you binge watched?
Oh, Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, I think it's called. It's on Amazon Video, and it's totally not a normal one that I would watch. I kind of watched it since you're Jewish. It's about a Jewish woman who's getting divorced, and she unintentionally becomes like a stand-up comedian. And even the fashion in there is beautiful because it's in the 40s. I think it's in the 40s. It's so good. It's one of their first. It's Amazon's original series. Or they're coming out with more to kind of compete with Netflix. So, you know me, I'm a big supporter of Amazon.
Totally. And we need Amazon to come up with a story about a woman that's Thai Dom. And then I will get to know more about your background.
I know. And there was like some episodes about Hanukkah. So I was using that, using that knowledge I felt just recently.
Yeah, because this is being recorded at the end of 2017. So we just went through Hanukkah and Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's hilarious. Just so everybody also knows, Minna is Thai Dom and living in the Midwest. She's in Iowa, and I am Jewish, as she said, and I'm from Los Angeles, and I go between Los Angeles and the East Coast, like New York and New Jersey. So we are covering all parts of the country and different backgrounds. And so we're learning together, and we'll learn with you as well. Okay, so this is one I came up with, and I was like, this is a good one. What should the title on your business card actually say?
Jack of all trades, master of nothing.
You're a master of Amazon. Let's just step back there.
Comparatively, maybe, but Amazon is a beast. I mean, there's no person out there besides, what's his name? Bezos that would know besides him. Yeah.
Okay. And then Beyonce, she has her alter ego, which is Sasha Fierce. So do you have an alter ego or a stage persona?
I don't, but that one of the things that I thought was so cool and I take such pride in is that when iPhones first came out, my name, which is spelled Minna, would autocorrect to Ninja.
Oh,
I mean, that's pretty rad, right? So I don't know if it still does that because you know how your own phone is now like smarter and they know what you're trying to type in. So, and then what's so funny is that my cousin, his name's Jimmy. Whenever I would type in his name, his would be hummus. It would autocorrect to hummus.
Ninja and hummus.
Right.
I love it. Okay, so you're my ninja.
Yes.
All right. And then if you could go back in time and give yourself, your 23-year-old self or your 30-year-old self, one piece of advice before launching your business, what would it be?
It would be that everybody else is feeling what you're feeling. I always felt like I was being lonely, but I mean, everybody else, is feeling that same thing. And even when we became a mom, I felt like, man, this is really hard. And I didn't know that other moms struggled to be great moms too, so I think that's one of the things I would say to myself. everybody feels what you're feeling and it's okay. That's what I would say there.
Absolutely. And I would personally like to thank Facebook because a few of us were jumping off that platform, but I think that there's this resurgence now into groups and Facebook pages. And, the Product Boss has a group. There are other groups that we will totally share with all of you that we're a part of. And that is how, again, we found each other through a podcast Facebook group that we both listen to. Just a shout out to Natalie Ekdahl of the Biz Chicks podcast, who's ultimately our matchmaker. So you might have to go and watch Fiddler on the Roof if you want to keep learning about the Jewish culture and matchmakers. But she connected us there. And I mean, we found each other, which is probably the best thing that happened to me in 2017. And that support group and feeling like you're not alone in any sort of, as you say, it's season or part of your life that you feel is maybe lacking that support structure.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that last year, meeting you too was a game changer. When you finally when you're finally around people that totally get what you're trying to do, it makes you feel like, hey, I can actually be this person. I can actually do what I'm doing. And then you just, you raise that bar just a little bit higher. So it's awesome.
And like I said, we talk business all the time. And we've also bonded on the fact that, your husband's your partner in business, mine is not, but there's just certain people that you talk to about certain things. And we've got each other now to go over our big ideas. So maybe the next time that you and I Voxer or talk on the phone, we'll just both lay down. Please.
Yes. It has to be mental alone time. Mental alone time when you're laying down.
No kids. So I learned so much about you today, even more so. Like I said, we talk all the time, but there are just some really cool things that you shared with us today. So thank you for being so open and honest.
Thank you.
So everyone, thank you again for joining the Product Boss podcast. We be able to give you more and more knowledge, tips, tools, and tricks. We'll be able to bring some really amazing experts, but the only way we'll do that is if you subscribe to this podcast, if you leave a comment on iTunes, go to our Facebook page, give us a like, our Instagram. But really what we would love for you to do is support us on iTunes and subscribe, listen, share, and leave a comment because we'd love to hear from you. All right, product bosses, let's make it happen.